Hey guys, this is Jason Matthew from Trinidad and Tobago, and today we're going to be looking at arachidonic acid from a level 1 biochemistry course. So this is the structure of arachidonic acid, and like any other fatty acids, a level 1 biochem student should be able to look at a fatty acid and write the delta designation for that fatty acid. So pause. Alright, and write the delta designation for the fatty acid. See what you can do first, and then we'll continue. Alright, so the first thing that you have to do when writing a delta designation is to start from the carboxylic end. Now, if you remember, a fatty acid has a carboxylic end and a methyl end. But for the delta designation, you're going to give the carbon on the carboxylic end 1. And then you're going to continue counting. So 1 here, and then each of these points will be another carbon. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So I'm going to put a 5 here. That's important. You'll see we'll use it just now. 5, 6, 7, 8. So that's 8. So then this will be 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18, 19, and then this final carbon here is 20. So the first number you want to write down for your delta designation is the number of carbons that your fatty acid is made up of. In this case, arachidonic acid has 20 carbons. Then you put dot dot, alright? The next number represents the number of double bonds that are present. Well, as you can see here, arachidonic acid is a polyunsaturated fatty acid, meaning that it has more than one double bond. In fact, it has 1, 2, 3, 4. So it has 4 double bonds. So this number represents the number of double bonds. Then we put the delta sign, which is just a simple triangle. And you're going to be putting the positions of the double bonds using the smaller number. So your first double bond is between carbons 5 and 6. So you just take the smaller number. So that'll be 5. And put a comma here. The next one is between 8 and 9. So you take the smaller number, 8. Likewise, between 11 and 12. So you take the smaller number, 11. And finally, smaller number again, 14. So you have 5 numbers, each representing a double bond. So that's the delta designation. What about if I had asked you what is the omega designation? Well, in that case, you will have to count from the methyl end. So when you do omega designation, you want to count from the methyl end and find the first double bond. So let me just go to a different color ink. So I'll go to blue. And we are going, in this case for omega designation, we're going to call the carbon at the methyl end carbon 1. And we're going to go until we find the first double bond. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. So from the methyl end, the first double bond is between carbon 6 and 7. So we say that this is an omega 6 fatty acid. So this kind of strange looking kind of W, it's an omega sign, it's an omega 6 fatty acid. Now arachidonic acid is a polyunsaturated fatty acid. It has 4 double bonds. But when you're doing the omega designation, you're only concerned with the first double bond from the methyl end. So it's an omega 6 fatty acid. So arachidonic acid, where is it found? Well, it's found in some of the phospholipids that are in the in your cell membranes. All right. So let's get a pen again. So you should remember that a typical phospholipid looks like this. All right. You have the phospholipid hydrophilic head or the polar head, and you have 2 nonpolar hydrophobic tails, and these tails represent the hydrocarbon component of fatty acids. And we can even go back a little bit more and be more precise. Remember, our phospholipid is made up of a glycerol backbone, and glycerol has 3 carbons. On carbon 1, there's normally a saturated fatty acid. And what we are saying is on carbon 2, in this case, it's arachidonic acid being attached. Alright? So it's found in the cell membrane. Now, arachidonic acid, yes, it's an omega-6 fatty acid, but it can be synthesized from linoleic acid. So for the human body, there are 2 essential fatty acids, and we say essential, meaning that they cannot be synthesized on their own. We must get these fatty acids from our diets. And the 2 essential fatty acids are linoleic acid, which is an omega-6, and linolenic acid, which is omega-3. Arachidonic acid can be made from linoleic acid, so we do not consider arachidonic acid an essential fatty acid for human beings. Now, arachidonic acid play a very, very important role in the human body. They are the precursors for a chemical called eicosanoids. Now, when I say a precursor, all we're doing is that the body is going to take arachidonic acid and make these very important eicosanoids. Alright? So let's talk a little bit about eicosanoids. Now, eicosanoids come from the Greek word eikosi, which means 20. And you already know where we got that number 20 from. It's coming from the arachidonic acid. Now, eicosanoids, they are hormones, and we describe them as paracrine hormones, meaning that where they are synthesized, they are used exactly there. I'll give you an opposing example. You know insulin and glucagon. These are common hormones. But those kind of hormones, they get into the blood and they travel all over the body. And they go to different organs and tissues. Well, for eicosanoids, they wherever they are produced, they have their effect right there. They don't travel around the place. And they have a short half-life. Alright? So eicosanoids they're local. They are localized in that particular area that they are produced. Now there are 3 major classes of eicosanoids. The first one being prostaglandins, and just on a side note, they were given that name because they were first discovered in the prostate gland. And they can cause inflammation, pain, and fever, and they stimulate contraction of smooth muscle of the uterus, which will be during menstruation as well as during labor and so on. I should warn you, I should inform you that there are other roles for prostaglandins. I just put 2 common ones. The other major class of eicosanoids are the thromboxanes, and you might be familiar with that name. Thromboxanes are involved in the formation of blood clots as well as in the reduction of blood flow. And finally, the third one is what we call leukotrienes. And leukotrienes, they are involved, they induce contraction of smooth muscle lining the airways and the lung. And if you overproduce leukotrienes, it can trigger an asthma attack. All right. In fact, there are some drugs out there that reduce the levels of leukotrienes. An example that comes to mind is Montelukast. So you could look up that. All right. Now, with prostaglandins and thromboxanes, because we know what they do now, we have developed certain drugs. So let me get my pen out. Alright, now you might have heard about this. Non-steroidal anti-inflammatory drugs. Alright, now if you haven't heard about it, that's fine. But I'm pretty sure you have used some of them without even knowing what they did. Or that at least they were described as non-steroidal anti-inflammatory drugs. The 2 common examples that come to mind will be aspirin and ibuprofen. Right, I'm seeing you shaking your head. You're saying, yes, I know, I use those. Right. Now, let's look at aspirin. That's the most common one. Now, aspirin, it prevents the production, all right, of prostaglandins and thromboxanes. Now let's think about what we use aspirin for. Now we use aspirin when we have a fever, and some people use aspirin when they're in some pain, and that makes sense because aspirin will reduce the production of prostaglandins in the body. And we just saw that prostaglandins are involved in inflammation and pain and fever, so it makes sense. Also, you know that some people, they use aspirin in small dosages at the long term, and they use that for people who have high risk of heart disease and strokes and so on. And now you see why. Because thromboxanes, they are involved in the formation of blood clots and they reduce the blood flow. So by aspirin inhibiting the production of thromboxanes, what we are doing is that we are protecting the individual from forming blood clots in his brain or in his arteries, where it could give him a stroke or a heart attack or something. And it's also increasing blood flow. Alright? So guys, we have come to the end. It was short and sweet. And this is all that a level 1 biochemistry student should know about arachidonic acid. So like, comment, subscribe. See you later. Bye guys.